Steve Shih is the head of diversity at NASA. With plans to go back to the moon by 2024, Steve is helping NASA build the right team to make the moon mission and all of NASA's future endeavors successful. I sat down with Steve to find out how building the most diverse team helps create the best team.
So the way I define diversity is actually, it's not just about differences. I define it as the entire range of organizational and individual differences and similarities. So to me, it's really about having access to the entire universe of possibility.
I'm Suzanne Clark, and this is 5 business lessons learned from NASA's Diversity League. So you have thousands of people who work at NASA, and you're thinking about how to make sure that you're representing all kinds of diverse viewpoints.
It's so crucial to ensure that there's diversity of thinking and perspectives because it drives the best solutions. And the research abounds that organizations with more diversity and inclusion have better performance, greater market share, better decision making, even better ethics. I think it's really critical to just remember that the best decision making and the best outcomes come from a full access to data. And you can only get full access to data if you have different people with different perspectives and thinking that can help alert you to mitigate blind spots, to ensure that we avoid groupthink and optimism bias.
It's so funny that you just said groupthink and optimism bias. That's exactly where I was going. So I used to own a small business, especially when you have a small workforce. The groupthink and optimism bias is very real. The number of people in the room saying, are we sure that will work? Right. Seeing things from a different perspective is really important.
Well, that's exactly right. So as leaders, we know that, especially if we're in positions of power, when we say something, people immediately agree with us. Mm-hmm. So there's some officials at NASA, they regularly talk about in meetings trying to be the last person to speak. Because they know if they're the first person to speak, everybody agrees with them. And similarly, we tend to be funnier because of our positions of power. So when we say something that is not really that funny, people tend to laugh excessively hard. It's not just about diversity of people and diversity of thought. We have to create the conditions where there's psychological safety.
I think that's a really interesting point that you're making.
We don't need people agreeing with us. We already know that opinion. We need the benefit of different perspectives to catch us from going off the road when we're making the wrong decisions. And so at NASA, what we talk about is giving people air so that they feel safe and protected from retaliation. They're treated fairly, and they feel that they can actually speak up to voice even an unconventional or an unpopular or a dissenting opinion.
I think that's a really important point.
And then we talk about giving them space, and that's the room to be fully able to contribute and to be authentic, to be able to give the benefit of their thinking and their skills. And that enables us to discover, to explore, and to expand knowledge for all human beings. And so I've coined a saying at NASA. At NASA, we make air and space available for everyone. I think the key to diversity and inclusion is actually taking the next step, which is unity. And so we're embarking on a unity effort where what we're doing is to unify our workforce towards a unified mission. And that's the Artemis mission, where we're getting back to the moon by 2024.
I think the unity piece is so important. And I love your concept of what do we have in common.
If everybody's focused on the mission, then we're much more likely to unify and really work towards that. And here's how it works. The first component is about getting people to elevate and broaden their perspective. And we know from our missions in our history, particularly astronauts who are able to elevate into space and then be able to look back on the Earth and see how small it is compared to the vastness and the infinite blackness of the universe. That puts things into perspective. They look back, they don't see the artificial constructs that we've developed that divide us as people and countries.
Amazing.
So what we're doing at NASA is really helping everyone elevate their perspective beyond self-interest, self-agendas, or even selfish divides, and to focus on the mission. And then the second component is, once we have everybody's sights elevated up into the stars, we have to bring people together to connect. And what that does is it breaks down barriers, they build that trust, and then it enhances the teamwork, the collaboration, and the coordination, and the harmony of the workforce.